Part 56. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 551. Zhang Dongziu, Crow, Aja, Xianzi and other key members nodded. As for how to investigate specifically, they still need to discuss it. Go and have a rest. You've been busy for a few days. By the way, Sapporo New World Hotel will reward those who deserve rewards and promote those who deserve promotion. The people of Sapporo New World Hotel have made great contributions to getting the news of Yataguchi so quickly. Brother, how should Shuxia deal with it? Aja asked in a low voice. Li Qing glanced at the numb Shuxia Xiaoshan, keep it for now. Go to the secret room and get his fingerprints. By the way, make a mold of Kamida's fingerprints, which will be useful when the time comes. Shuxia is very clear about the situation in the secret room, so he must take him with him, which can save a lot of time. Li Qing didn't care about other things and walked out of the room directly. He wanted to go back to the manor to rest and think carefully about the next plan. This Yataguchi is not so easy to deal with. Kamida's disappearance must have attracted their attention. With the resources at hand, it is not difficult for them to find the Aoki group. Li Qing should make plans early. At least use other things to distract these people's energy so that they will not have time to pay attention to the side in a short time. Li Qing closed his eyes and lay on the bed, falling asleep. On a rainy night, a black Mercedes-Benz car just stopped at the door of a Japanese manor. The logo on the gate was slightly eye-catching, it was a three-legged crow. Bang! The person in the co-pilot quickly ran down, opened the black umbrella, and respectfully opened the back door. A gray-haired old man walked out of the back door of the car. He looked about 70 years old and had some age spots on his face. Mr. Kato, please be careful. The person who got off the car was the previous Minister of State Kato Ida. Yeah. Kato Ida nodded, wearing a black kimono and wooden clogs. This damn typhoon, why can't we have a stable living environment? Kato Ida shook his head and walked into the house. Some people have come to the house, and they greet Kato Ida respectfully. Kato Ida just nodded and didn't say anything. Those standing in the corridor are all juniors, so there is no need to be too polite with them. Kato, you are late. As soon as I walked into the door, I heard the big man sitting in the middle of the room said with a little complaint. Humph, it's not too late, not to mention there is a typhoon. The three big crows of heaven, earth, and man are equal in principle. What makes Kato angry is that the old man in the middle always acts as the leader. Hurry up and sit down. In fact, I didn't come early either. An elderly big man on the lower right tried to smooth things over with a fake smile. The one in the middle didn't say anything. There were only 3 people in the whole room, and the lights were not turned on. They could only see each other clearly by relying on the occasional lightning outside the house. Alas, Kamita is missing, the big man in the middle sighed. Kamida's disappearance had the greatest impact on him. Kamita was his loyal supporter. With Kamida's status as the leader of the 12 crows, he can suppress the other big crows. Now that Kamita is missing, Kato's attitude shows that he can't suppress him. He, Kamita has the closest relationship with you, and you know his affairs best. I wonder what Lord Anbei's intention is for asking the 2 of us to come this time. Kato asked with a smile. He wished that Kamita would die sooner, because Anbei, this old guy, has suppressed them for a long time. Brother Kato makes sense. Another big boss also agreed. Anbei glared, we, the Yatagarasu, have always been of the same blood. As a member of the organization, Kamita is missing now. Shouldn't you help find him? The other 2 looked at each other, with a trace of contempt on their faces. Anbei, Kamita was captured by the Aoki group. Don't tell me you don't know. Anbei remained silent. Of course, he knew that it was the Aoki group that captured Kamita, but he still didn't want to show up alone. If he had to show up, the other two would be more suitable. After all, both of them are still in important positions, and their power is much greater than his. Anbei also knows that it is impossible to let the two work in vain. In this way, Kamita's life or death does not matter. As long as the Aoki group is cleared, the position of the head of the 12 crows will be given to you. Hearing Anbei's words, Kato and another big crow looked at each other and understood that Anbei was killing 3 warriors with 2 peaches. But the position of the head of the 12 crows is too tempting. If you get this position, you will undoubtedly become the most powerful one in the Yatta crows. Kato pondered for a moment. Okay. The Aoki group can be cleared, but I won't touch Li Cheng. The cost of touching Li Cheng is too high, and he himself has no confidence that he can survive the series of revenge actions later. Me too. Seeing that both of them agreed, Anbei smiled and said, my goal is to drive Li Cheng out of my life. Kill him? I haven't thought about it. Anbei's eyes turned. As long as the two of them agreed, he still had a group of secret troops under his command. Killing Li Cheng and then blaming the two of them, this arrangement is perfect. By the way, how is the research going? Kato said seriously. Compared to clearing the Aoki group, he was more concerned about the research progress of that thing. After all, if this thing succeeds, it will allow Xiaozizi to replace the status of the United States. There are still some problems that have not been solved, but there is some progress. You know that this kind of thing can't be rushed. Anbei frowned and said. In fact, he was also anxious, but there was no way. This kind of thing could only be done secretly. Once discovered by the United States or other countries, the entire country of Zaire will be sanctioned. Be patient, you have come through all these years. If you want to make a splash, you must be able to endure loneliness, another big crow whispered to comfort. Kato nodded and said nothing more. But Anbei was a little doubtful. He handed some information to Kamita for management, and he didn't know where Kamita put it. If it was leaked, he would become the sinner of Zaire. There were not only detailed information of the entire plan, but also some plans of the United States that he had learned. Once these things were leaked, he would definitely die. This is also the reason why he wanted to solve the Aoki group and kill Li Cheng as soon as possible. Okay, the matter of clearing the Aoki group has been decided. The action must be fast. I'm afraid that if the time is delayed for a long time, there will be more troubles, Anbei said in a deep voice. Kato frowned. He always felt that Anbei, the old man, was hiding something from him. Besides, everyone knows that the Aoki group is not so easy to deal with. If it is easy to eliminate, they would not have waited until today. The other one is not a fool either. He looked at Kato and the other two and nodded slightly. Okay, let the subordinates contact you about what to do. After that, the two of them said goodbye and walked out of the mansion at the same time. Brother Kato, this weather is very suitable for drinking some wine. Do you want to go together? Haha, let's go together, let's go together. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 552. The rain kept falling in a sushi restaurant that was not open to the public. Kato, do you think that old man Anbei is hiding something from us? The two clinked their glasses and drank the sake in the glass in one gulp. The three big Yuri cooperated in dealing with Anbei in some aspects, and often exchanged information with each other. But this time, both of them saw Anbei's abnormal behavior. Kato was silent for a while and shook his head. Anbei is too worried about Kamita. He can't be so impatient with his temperament. Or he is worried about what Kamita has. Another big Yuri touched his chin and guessed. Whatever it is, it should be something we don't know. I think we should not be the first to come forward. They are all people who play politics to the bone. They can guess Anbei's thoughts. They just pretended to agree. Well, the key is how to justify not taking action. Kato picked up the sashimi, dipped it in the sauce and put it in his mouth. Haha, this is not difficult to do. As long as Li Qing knows that someone is dealing with him, Li Qing will definitely take precautions. By then, it will be a crime of war, and the old man Anbei will have no way to deal with us, To Wu said with a smile. Kato glanced at his old friend opposite. I don't have any contact with Li Qing, so I still have to trouble you with this matter. Haha, okay, let's drink. After drinking, let's go to Kabukicho to watch the show. I heard that there are some good ones from Thailand. Li Qing just came out of the manor and planned to stroll around, and saw Gangsheng and Nanako walking in with big and small bags. Hey, where did you buy the goods? Li Qing teased. Before Gangsheng spoke, Nanako glared at Li Qing. Don't ask about women's affairs. Gangsheng stroked his lips and smiled, and whispered in Li Qing's ear, I bought some sexy underwear. Li Qing looked at the pile of things and smiled with satisfaction, and felt his blood boiling. Why did you only buy so little? Buy more. The two women laughed again and again. Brother Qing, I also plan to sell more. I received a call from my father, asking me to tell you that he will come to visit you later. Nanako put down the bag in her hand and came to Li Qing and whispered. Li Qing looked at Nanako in confusion. Visit me? No, I get angry when I see him. He glared at Nanako pretending to be angry. The old man Kazuo Kusakari would ask for money from time to time under the pretext of visiting his daughter. The 1985 Moutai collected in his warehouse was almost drunk. Brother Qing, don't make trouble, there is really something this time. Nanako pulled Li Qing's arm coquettishly. Is there really something? Nanako nodded seriously. When Li Qing heard this, his expression on his face became solemn. Crow, where have you been? Brother, Crow ran over from the door in a hurry. Bring the Wang's Hai stinky tofu you brought from your hometown last time. Kazuo Kusakari wants to eat? Okay, there's still half a can left. I'll get it now. Crow rubbed his hands excitedly, ready to let foreign friends taste what delicious food is. Gangsheng looked at Li Qing with amusement. She rarely saw Li Qing so childish, so she patted him lightly. Brother Qing, you should respect him a little. After all, he is Nanako's father. Nanako looked indifferent. It's okay. I'm used to it anyway. Let's go, Sister Gangsheng. Try wearing that flesh-colored one again. I think it looks good. Seeing the backs of the two girls, Li Qing felt hot under his nose, and the word flesh-colored lingered in his mind. It was not until noon that Kazuo Kusakari slowly came to Li Qing's manor on time. Li Qing, long time no see. Kazuo Kusakari was still as enthusiastic as usual. Li Qing glanced at him, empty-handed. That can't be done. Kusakari. Kazuo waved his hand and took a large bottle of sake from his younger brother, brewed with ancient methods, produced by a master craftsman. The crow next to him rolled his eyes. No matter how good the sake was, it couldn't taste good. It didn't have the aroma of Chinese sake. Sit down. Kusakari. Kazuo smiled. What kind of food did you prepare today? Let me see. The crow put a piece of stinky tofu in front of him with a small butterfly without saying a word. President Kusakari, this is a specialty I brought from China for you. Try it. Kusakari. Kazuo almost fainted from the smell of stinky tofu. He suspected that it was taken out of the toilet. He quickly pushed it aside and pinched his nose and said, Thank you, Crow, you are thoughtful. Seeing that Kusakari. Kazuo didn't like it, Li Qing didn't force it. The dishes served later were also normal Chinese food. The two of them ate and drank happily. What do you want to talk to me about this time? It's so mysterious and you have to pass it through Nanako. Li Qing knew that Kazuo Kusakari must have something special, otherwise it would be more convenient to call him directly. Kazuo Kusakari put down his chopsticks. Li Qing, have you had a conflict with someone recently? Li Qing's eyes turned. Recently, the Aoki group did things without leaving any tails, and everything was designed according to the unexpected. He was a little curious about how Kazuo Kusakari knew it. Why do you say that? Kazuo Kusakari coughed. My uncle in the family is a high-ranking official. He knows our relationship and asked me to remind you that some people want to harm you, and they are all in the white way. When his uncle came to him, he was also a little surprised. Because of his identity, this uncle has always been very reluctant to contact him directly. Oh, Li Qing frowned and his eyes condensed. He knew that the other party might have made a move. Huh? Your uncle? Then Li Qing realized what Kazuo Kusakari said. Ahem, yes, you can also call him great uncle. 1,000 grass mud horses ran through Li Qing's heart, but this cheap father-in-law could only take advantage of him verbally. Kusakari family, there is such a capable person. Li Qing rolled his eyes and was not forgiving in his words. Kazuo Kusakari didn't want to talk immediately. He was afraid of being angry to death by Li Qing. Humph, I'm worried about my daughter. If she is caught off guard, my daughter will have to leave her hometown with you. This time they have the idea of clearing the entire Aoki group. Kazuo Kusakari snorted coldly and put a large piece of braised pork into his mouth with chopsticks. Hearing this, Li Qing became serious. From Kazuo Kusakari's words, he could hear that this time it was the high-level government officials who wanted to deal with him. Who? Kazuo Kusakari shook his head. He didn't know who it was. My uncle is ranked very high in the political arena. He can say this. It should be someone at the same level as him who wants to deal with you. Li Qing sneered when he heard this. If his guess was correct, the person who wanted to deal with him was one of the 3 big crows in Yataguchi, or the 3 big crows. But he was not unprepared. The information of the Zairai country exchange plan in his hand was already on the way to the top leaders of the relevant countries. Next, let's see if the other side still has the energy to deal with him. He was very curious. How would Zairai react to the sanctions from so many countries? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 553. China, Internet, the largest forum. A post was pinned at the top with a very eye-catching name, Jinling Friendship School was demolished. There were already more than 10,000 comments under the post. When I clicked in, I saw that it was full of dense replies. I'm from Jinling. The Sino-Japanese Friendship School next to my store has been demolished. I'm so happy. Those Japanese devils pass by my store every day with arrogance. It's so annoying. Has your friendship school been demolished? Ad 1, haha. Huangdao came to report that not only our friendship school was demolished, but also the Zairai nursing home. This is the first time I see XX so tough. The old men and old ladies of Zairai were carried out. Really? Lenin also joined the demolition action. This is the first time I feel that the country is tough. This group of Zairai actually put up a sign in front of the school, and it said that Chinese people are not allowed to enter. Now they were carried out crying and screaming. It's so refreshing. The capital sent a congratulatory message, but we were still soft-hearted and asked them to evacuate within 3 days, but we didn't do it. Now these Zairai are packing up and going home in disgrace, haha. Internet users had a heated discussion on this matter. Except for a few people who had objections, most people agreed with both hands and feet. The reason why China acted so quickly this time was entirely because of the information sent by Li Qing. As soon as Qi Gang received the information, he immediately handed it over to the minister, and the minister directly forwarded the list to the relevant departments. This incident shocked the upper echelons a little, because there were more than 1 or 2 termites on the list. The demolition of friendly schools and nursing homes was only on the surface, and the secret operation of eliminating traitors in his hometown was also underway. Su Jun is the deputy director of a military research institute in China. On the surface, he is an old-fashioned intellectual. He wears a pair of black-framed glasses all year round and dresses a little simply. He gives people the impression of being a man of few words and hard work, a typical research talent. "Hello, Director Su." "Hey, good. Have you eaten, Lao Su?" I have eaten, I have eaten." Many people greeted him along the way, and he smiled back, but in fact he was worried. When he walked into his office, he put away the smile on his face. The things about China's removal of friendly schools in the past few days made him feel that something was wrong. It turned out that he was turned over when he was studying abroad in Zirizi. He had been sending scientific research secrets to Zirizi for many years, and he also received secret remittances from there every month. He had a guilty conscience, and the fact that China was doing a big move this time gave him a bad feeling. "It seems that we have to act immediately," Su Jun muttered to himself. He had already arranged a way out. The money he earned in these years was enough for him and his next generation to live a carefree life. It was easy for him to apply for political asylum in the United States with his identity, and the things in his mind could be sold there for a good price. He did it right away, and Su Jun began to sort out some of his personal belongings and some confidential documents he wanted to take away. Knock, knock. The knock on the door woke Su Jun up. He straightened his clothes and said, "Come in." A man in his 50s pushed the door open and said, "Old Su, what are you doing?" Su Jun put down the documents in his hand and coughed lightly. "Director, I'm tidying up the office." "What do you want?" No, a few comrades want to meet you." After the director finished speaking, 4 young men in black suits walked in from outside. The leader walked in and showed his work permit directly. "Su Jun, please come with us." Su Jun's heart skipped a beat when he saw the words on the work permit. The red work permit read, "China National Security Bureau." "Excuse me, what do you want to talk to me about?" Su Jun asked with a fluke mentality. "Su Jun, please cooperate with us." The leader's voice was very cold. "Old Su, cooperate well. I believe that the organization will not wrongly accuse a good person, nor will it let a bad person go." The director scolded with a wooden face. The comrades from the Security Bureau had just explained the situation to him. Such a big traitor had appeared in the institute, and he, as the director, could not take off the hat of lax supervision. Su Jun glanced at the director, who sat dejectedly on the chair, and the information in his hand fell to the ground. He knew he was finished. "Can you be decent without handcuffs?" Su Jun murmured. The leading young man looked at Su Jun coldly, turned his head and said, "Handcuff him and take him away." Decent. People like this who betrayed the interests of the country still want to be decent, dream about it. Although Su Jun has not been investigated yet, with Su Jun's position, he can guess how much damage he has caused to the country. Click, click. The silver bracelet was handcuffed on Su Jun's wrist, and only then did he feel the coldness of the handcuffs. What made him even more ashamed was the discussion of his former colleagues. "Is Lao Su a spy? How could it be? I never expected that. Alas, I heard that his child is about to take the college entrance examination. It's all over now. The child's life is ruined. I usually see him dressed very simply, but I didn't expect, alas. What are you feeling sorry for? He is just a termite. If it were decades ago, he would have been shot. He should be shot now." The mocking, resentful, and contemptuous eyes made Su Jun feel ashamed. He now just wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. In the past, It felt like the distance from the office to the entrance of the research building was very short, and it only took a few minutes. Now he felt that this distance was very long. The National Security Bureau began to hunt down the people on the list, and almost all of them were arrested. Only a few were on business trips, but they were also controlled by the local security department. It can be said that the entire intelligence network of Xirizi in China has been basically cleared, involving almost all aspects. Even the top leaders were a little shocked by the scale of these tumors. Some confidential scientific research projects and some scientific research results have flowed into Xirizi, which made the top leaders extremely angry. So it was decided that these people would never be tolerated. Those who could be sentenced to death would never be sentenced to life imprisonment, and those who could be sentenced to life imprisonment would never be allowed to be commuted. Unlike the kindness of China, Southeast Asian countries are more natural, and there is no such thing as trial or imprisonment. Among them, Luzon is the most brutal. This is understandable. Xirizi massacred many people in Luzon during World War II. After Xirizi was defeated, Luzon directly retaliated by killing 190,000 Xirizi prisoners of war. It is even more impossible to indulge them this time. After receiving the list sent by Li Qing, President Luzon directly sent people to arrest the Xiri people and domestic spies on the list. These people were not tried or arrested, but directly shot. But what really frightened Xiri was the practice of the Java Chinese Autonomous Province. Yes, you heard it right, Xiri also sent people to the Autonomous Province. After receiving Li Qing's instructions, the autonomous provincial government directly arrested some spies and Xiri people. Just like the crimes committed by Xiri in China decades ago, the autonomous province directly executed these people by beheading. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 554. July 18th was another day when a typhoon raged. In the small Congress, in the medium-sized conference room, everyone's face was uglier than the weather outside the window. Prime Minister, our deployment in East Asia through the Yehui has been basically destroyed. Prime Minister Kishida's face turned pale. Is there any Bangsa country? Although they don't know why only Bangsa country did not take action, it is already a blessing in misfortune for them, and it is still better than the entire army being annihilated. Kishida looked around the entire conference room, in other words, the plans laid out by the Two Leaves Society for nearly 10 years have all been cancelled. Prime Minister, it seems like this now. But the most urgent thing is the next response. I estimate that except for Bangsa country, other countries will impose sanctions on our little life because of this incident. Our diplomacy will receive an unprecedented blow. The staff quickly reported the situation. And explain. And the most violent reaction this time was from the Chinese Autonomous Province of Java. They executed all of us by beheading. The whole audience was in an uproar. In this day and age, there are still people who dare to use such inhumane methods. Isn't he afraid of being exposed? Bang Kishida slammed his fist on the table, startling everyone. New World, Kishida's roar echoed throughout the conference room. At this time, Kato, who was sitting on the left, secretly shook his head. The Prime Minister of a country could be so restless. This ability is really not worthy of the position of Prime Minister. Issue an order to declare New World a terrorist organization. Arrest Li Qing immediately and I will make him pay the price. Kishida clenched his fists and said. Prime Minister, isn't this a bit hasty? At least ask the beautiful country for its advice. Kato glanced at Kishida and said softly. He was afraid that Kishida would be impulsive because of his emotions and directly declare New World a terrorist organization, which the beautiful country would not recognize at all. If it doesn't work well, Xili will make a fool of himself in the international community. Kishida's momentum froze. Well, Let's ask beautiful country for its opinion first. If there is no objection there, take action immediately. There is no way, anything my father does not allow in the beautiful country cannot be carried out in my childhood. Watching his men walk out in a hurry, Kishida coughed again. Ahem, next, let's discuss how to deal with the next situation. The staff will report first. Immediately, the relevant person in charge stood up and reported, since the day before yesterday, China, Luzon, Java, Thailand, etc. have successively cancelled agricultural cooperation. Among them, Luzon and Yunnan have cancelled their Shinkansen project cooperation. In addition, Daimao infrastructure projects between the two countries have been suspended, and troops have begun to be deployed on the 4 northern islands. The exposure of the country-changing plan made the whole life passive. Facing the dispute over the 4 northern islands, Mao was not polite and took advantage of the chaos to directly send troops to station. Kishida and others felt more and more uncomfortable the more they listened. At this time, Li Qing was lying under the grape trellis in front of the door, leisurely enjoying the fruit service provided by Hong Kong Sheng and Nanako. Well, the apples are good, let's have some more. Li Qing chewed the apple in his mouth. Hong Kong Sheng glared at him angrily, but still stuffed the piece into his mouth lovingly. Brother Qing, what my father said, you should serve some snacks. Nanako peeled the grape skins and glanced at Li Qing worriedly. Well, don't worry, I know it well. They don't have time to pay attention to me now. Li Qing smiled and waved his hand. Everyone knows what happened in this little life. I heard that even Western countries have begun to investigate the small-time people in their countries for fear of being parasitized. It's a bit like everyone shouting to beat me. Ding ding ding. The phone rang quickly. Nanako picked up the phone from the table next to her and handed it to Li Qing. Li Qing raised his eyebrows when he saw the call. Hello? Xiaomin? Do you want to see me? The caller was Mao Xianmin from Bangsa country. After hearing Li Qing's words, Hong Kong Sheng and Nanako looked at each other, and both curiously raised their ears, wanting to hear what was going on. It's me, Brother Qing. I miss you, Mao Xianmin said affectionately. Hearing the sweet voice, Hong Kong just smiled and said nothing, while Nanako curled her lips and looked disgusted. Li Qing glanced at the two girls awkwardly. Ahem, me too, tell me what you have to say. Mao Xianmin usually talked on the phone with Li Qing at night. This time he called during the day because of other matters. That's it. Mao Xianmin stopped teasing him and said softly, Yin Kaka called me. Mao Xianmin's words stunned Li Qing. Who? President Yin Kaka. Yes. Yin Kaka called Mao Xianmin, which Li Qing didn't expect. Yin Kaka is a little anxious. He knows that all countries in the country-changing plan have received the list, but Bangsa country has not received it. Mao Xianmin didn't say anything anymore. Anyway, Yin Kaka was very anxious. Although he had always been pro-Japanese, there was a lot of opposition within the Bangsa government this time, and they thought he had suppressed the matter. No one knew that he really didn't receive it, so he begged Mao Xianmin directly. Li Qing chuckled after hearing the whole story. He just deliberately refused to give it to Bangsa country. China and Southeast Asia were easy to talk about. Bangsa country didn't pay a penny and wanted to get information from itself in vain. There was no way. Hey, what's up? This little fat guy wants to get something for free. Li Qing smiled with his mouth curved. Xiaomin replied directly to him, my information was not blown by the wind, I lost a lot of people and a lot of money to get it. He wants him to come up with something himself. Mao Xianmin also laughed, she knew that her man had always been a geese plucking feathers, this time if Yin Kaka really wanted to get the list, I'm afraid it would be a bit bloody. But there is a problem, most of the resources are in the hands of the chaebol. Yin Kaka can use very few chips to exchange, and most of what he has in his hands are some state-owned land resources. What do you want? Tell me the bottom line, I can bargain, Mao Xianmin said with a smile. It's still her woman who understands him and knows that he has a clear goal. Jeju Island is good, I think it also has potential to be tapped in tourism. Jeju Island is a good place, the tourism industry in South Korea has just started. Jeju Island was originally a poor and remote place, and now it is slowly starting to gain momentum. Lee Ching had tasted the sweetness of Jeep Island in Thailand, and of course he didn't want to let go of Jeju Island. Mao Xianmin frowned and shook his head. There are too few chips, I think it's unlikely. Lee Ching certainly knew this, but he found a person on the list, and Yin Kaka would definitely agree based on this person's identity. It's okay, his biggest political enemy is on the list, just ask him if he wants it. If he doesn't want it, it doesn't matter, anyway, if you miss this village, you will never have this shop again. Lee Ching snorted lightly. Now it's a seller's market, and Yin Kaka can't bargain. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Banwan Qing Buletin Liang. Chapter 555. In Itaewon District, inside a luxurious villa. Yin Kaka kept pacing in the study, and Mao Xianmin's reply made it difficult for him to make a decision. Especially knowing that there is one of his political opponents on the list. I wonder if he is the one he hopes for most? That person is the first statement of the largest opposition party. Jiang Zemin has always wanted to get rid of him. He himself has a dirty butt, and the other party used the country-changing plan in his small life to attack him. He is now also guessing whether Jiang Zemin's name is on the list. Another point is that he is afraid that the list will be obtained by others. Who knows if his name is on the list? In recent years, he has been the representative of the pro-Japanese faction in Bangsa. Jeju Island, Yin Kaka frowned. Now all the fools in Bangsa country know that investing in Jeju Island is a surefire business, and several chaebols have contacted him. But he never let go. He still understood that rare things can be lived in. This time, he was really reluctant to give them to Lee Ching for nothing. While he was hesitating, Mao Xianmin called again according to Lee Ching's instructions. President Yin, my man said that Jiang Zemin has contacted him. If you still haven't decided, I'm afraid. When Yin Kaka heard this, he turned pale with fright. If Jiang Zemin got the list, not only would he not be able to keep his position as president, but he would be sent to prison like the previous presidents. Wait. Miss Mao, I have to think about this matter carefully. After all, this is not my decision. Yin Kaka used the dragging technique. But as a new chaebol, Mao Xianmin certainly knew that the president could make a decision on this matter. President Yin, I don't care about this matter. But I think it's better for you to decide early. After all, there are many nights and dreams. Others will agree after they get the list and become president. Then. Hearing this, Yin Kaka cursed secretly for being shameless. Not only Lee Ching, but also his woman was so aggressive. After a long silence, okay, can you give me the list first? I can't stand the pressure anymore. Public opinion is fermenting, and political opponents are using the media to put pressure on him. If he had not been unable to withstand the pressure, he would not have been so frustrated. Mao Xianmin on the other end of the phone smiled and said, yes, the list will be sent to your house within half an hour. She wasn't afraid that Yin Kaka wouldn't admit it. If he dared not admit it, another list with his name would fall into Jiang Zemin's hands. Yin Kaka also knew this, so he didn't want to do anything in this regard. Half an hour later, Yin Kaka looked at the list in his hand with a surprised expression on his face. Some of these people he had not expected. It is a pity that his biggest political opponent Jiang Zemin is not listed here, but it is acceptable because there are many other political opponents on the list. Yin Kaka took action immediately, and the political arena of Bangsa country was shaken. After a series of operations, Lee Ching gained a circle of friendship. But the government was not in such a good mood in the early days. What? Are you saying that coffee country is expelling Japanese? Prime Minister Kishida stood up in shock. You must know that there are about 2 million Japanese people in coffee country, accounting for 1% of the total population of coffee country. Although it is not as high as that of black people in Gaul, this proportion is still amazing. Yes, Prime Minister. The embassy in coffee country sent news that influenced by the anti-Japanese sentiment in East and Southeast Asia, South American countries such as coffee country also began to spontaneously expel Japanese. Even massacres occurred in some places. The staff member whispered. This situation has actually happened before. After all, the Japanese have more wealth than the locals, and robberies and murders occur from time to time. But this time the impact was more serious than before, and there were even mass killings. Damn it, Kishida slammed his fist on the table. The leak of the country-changing plan made the whole little life passive. It was all that man's fault. Has the beautiful country responded to the matter of classifying the New World as terrorism? Kishida asked in a deep voice. He now wants to catch Li Qing and shoot him. I was just about to report to you. There is news from the beautiful country saying that it is not allowed. If we insist on going our own way, they will recognize the legitimacy of the New World Group internationally. After hearing this, Kishida was furious and kept cursing in his heart. Mad, is Shinsekai your biological father, so protective? No matter how much he considered himself a son of the beautiful country when he was young, in the heart of the beautiful country's father, he can't even compare to a multinational organization? Making stern representations to coffee and other countries, if they do not stop the persecution of Japanese Americans, we will stop our economic assistance to them. Kishida said through gritted teeth. He can't do anything against the countries in East Asia and Southeast Asia, and he can't do anything against the South Americans. You must know that in South America, a lot of money was spent there in the early days. Not only did this group of despicable people not appreciate it, they also wanted to drive away the Japanese. It was time for them to suffer a little. The staff nodded upon hearing this and went down to make arrangements. Just as Li Qing expected, the government had no time to take care of him in order to put out fires everywhere. Especially after the beautiful country objected to classifying the New World as terrorism, Kishimoto gave up the idea of causing trouble for Li Qing. Time flies, and another 2 weeks have passed. These days, the key members of the Aoki group go out early and come back late, almost focusing most of their energy on the things arranged by Li Qing. The security level of the Bank of Japan is much tighter than imagined. Brother, the Bank of Japan has 3 lines of defense. The first is the police, security, and the alarm device at the front desk. The nearest police station is less than 1,000 meters away from the Bank of Japan and can respond quickly within 5 minutes. The second line of defense is the infrared corridor. If the authorization is not successful, once the infrared is triggered, the metal doors on both sides will close instantly, trapping people inside. The third line of defense is the vault door that weighs dozens of tons and is more than 1 meter thick. This door cannot be opened by violence. After entering the door is the vault, which has many small compartments. Kamida's secret vault is one of them. Zhang Dongxiu held the information and stood in front of Li Qing to report the news he had investigated these days. Li Qing closed his eyes and knocked on the table after listening. The difficulty was much greater than he imagined. No wonder Kamita looked disdainful on him before he died. It seems that he is more confident in the defense of the vault of Xiao Ri. However, no matter how strict the security is, it is operated by people. If you are a human, you have weaknesses. Well, continue. The security force is also composed of 3 parts. One part is the police, who are responsible for daily affairs. Another part is the security department in Zaire, and some of the alarm systems in it are responsible for them. Finally, there are special forces composed of self-defense force personnel. Generally, they will rush to the designated location to snipe the enemy as soon as they receive the order. In the 1986 Bank of Japan robbery, more than a dozen gangsters died under the guns of special forces. We have the information of the first two parts of the personnel, but the special forces are very mysterious. We have no way to get their information without alerting the top management of the Bank of Japan. Zhang Dongzhou and others investigated very carefully, but the information of the special forces could not be obtained at all. Because only the head of the Bank of Japan, Kenichi Anbei, knew it. Special Forces. Kenichi Anbei, Li Qing fell into deep thought. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 556. Anbei family, Li Qing tilted his head and glanced at Zhang Dongzhou. Zhang Dongzhou nodded, his father is former Prime Minister Anbei Ziyasi. Tisk Li Qing sneered, family inheritance? It seems that he is going to follow his father's route. If Li Qing's guess is correct, Anbei Kenichi is the next candidate for Prime Minister. Brother, why don't we start with him? Zhang Dongzhou suggested. Li Qing frowned and thought for a while, then shook his head, no, the target is too sensitive. It's okay if Anbei Jian disappears for an hour or two, but if he disappears for more than half a day, I'm afraid some people will start to be alert. Give him the information let me see. Zhang Dongzhou quickly found out the information about Anbei Kenichi and handed it to his elder brother. Li Qing scanned the previous resume and found nothing that could be used. They were all insignificant things. However, Li Qing was very interested in Yasuo Kenichi's wife, Yasuo Sakurako, formerly known as Matsushita Sakurako, is 27 years old. Her father is Matsushita Arita, the founder of the Panasonic Group. Yasuo Sakurako was born in a privileged class. There are also shares in the Panasonic Group under his name, and there is also a construction company. Especially Li Qing became more interested when he saw the Panasonic Group. Dongzhou, do we have shares in Panasonic? He still vaguely remembered the last time he blackmailed Kazuo Kusagari, he bought a lot of shares in Panasonic. Well, brother, wait a moment. Zhang Dongzhou immediately took out a small black notebook from his pocket and began to rummage through it. If Crow was present, he would definitely scold him for showing off. Unfortunately, it was Crow's turn to lead the team to observe the situation of the Bank of Japan today. Yes, we hold 15.6% of Panasonic's shares. Li Qing chuckled after hearing this. 15.6% of the shares were too maneuverable. Carefully investigate the shares held by Anbei Yingzi and the Matsushita family. He already had a plan in mind. As long as Anbei Yingzi was taken care of and she was an internal agent, his plan would not be impossible to complete. Besides, collect some dirty information about Kenichi Anbei for me. I'll find it useful. Li Qing smiled. Zhang Dongzhou looked at his boss's smile and felt that there was something hidden in it that he couldn't understand, so he didn't think twice and responded directly. This matter was easy to investigate. It was all public information. It only took less than half an hour for the Aoki team to get it without much effort. Huh? Panasonic's share is so small. Li Qing looked at the information and raised his eyebrows. After multiple rounds of financing, the entire Panasonic family's shares are worth less than 20%, but this 20% is enough for the Panasonic family to continue to control the Panasonic Group. Li Qing now realizes that the old guy Kazuo Kusagari is still okay, and 15.6% of the shares are still quite precious. To express his gratitude, he decided to buy some more Panasonic shares from him. While chatting with Nanako, he learned that her father seemed to have heard some inside information and had been acquiring stocks from some retail investors in the last period. Li Qing dialed Kazuo Kusagari's phone number without hesitation. Haha, How about Li Qing, is my reminder useful? If you hadn't acted in advance, you would have suffered a big loss. Kazuo Kusagari's hearty smile came from the opposite side. He thought it was his information that made a contribution, and he felt that Li Qing finally owed him a favor this time. I'm sorry, you knew this before you came here. Last time Nanako was here, I couldn't let you down. You didn't think I could handle such a big thing in a few days, right? Li Qing touched it. Touching the temples gave Kazuo Kusagari no chance to claim credit. Ha ha, ha, Kazuo Kusagari stopped like a rooster mid-crowing, followed by a long silence. He doesn't want to talk to Li Qing at all now, he's heartbroken. Let's get down to business. I heard you have shares in Panasonic. Li Qing showed a mysterious smile. Kazuo Kusakari held the phone and shook his head unconsciously. Who did you listen to? It's nothing. Hey, Nanako said it? Kazuo Kusagari suddenly felt the biting cold wind on this hot July day, and the wind leaked out of his little cotton-padded jacket. Li Qing, don't even think about it, there's no way. Kazuo Kusagari panted heavily and said rudely. Don't mention it, I also plan to take over the Panasonic group and let Nanako control it. I didn't grow up here, and someone still has to be responsible for the industry here. Alas, Nanako has been wronged so much these years. She always has to be given some property to work on. People can't be idle all the time. Li Qing said in a pretentious tone, with a hint of apology in his tone. Kazuo Kusagari scratched his face irritably. If Li Qing really thought this way, he would really help his daughter. She couldn't be worse than the daughter of the plutocrat in Bangsa country. After a long time, Kusagari Kazuo said tentatively, the shares will be in Nanako's name. Definitely, Li Qing replied without hesitation. Okay, I'll transfer all my shares to Nanako. Kazuo Kusagari gritted his teeth. I haven't given Nanako anything good over the years, so this share is equivalent to giving it to my daughter, giving her some protection in the future. How many do you have? Li Qing asked curiously. 9.1%, Kazuo Kusagari replied angrily. Being cheated by Li Qing every time, he felt that this person was his natural nemesis. There was nothing I could do, I couldn't match my strength, and my daughter turned her elbows outward, so I had to endure it. I heard you have an inside story, tell me, Li Qing asked curiously. Kenichi Anbei will be one of the presidential candidates in the next election, and the Panasonic Group will also rise. Don't spread this matter. My uncle told me, Kazuo Kusakari whispered. Li Qing's eyes flashed, and it was almost the same as he guessed. Kazuo Kusakari's shares were quickly transferred, and Li Qing began to implement his plan. What? What did you say? Equity change? The major shareholder asked to reopen the board of directors. Matsushita Arita, the head of the Panasonic Group, stood up excitedly. Chairman, there was a sudden equity consolidation. The mysterious major shareholder now holds 24.7% of the shares of the Panasonic Group, which exceeds the 20% of the Panasonic family. So the major shareholder asked to reopen the board of directors, and it is very likely. The secretary didn't say anything more. Everyone knew what the result would be. The Panasonic family couldn't hold most of the positions on the board of directors. Even Matsushita Arita's chairman had to give up. Who is that major shareholder? Matsushita Arita felt angry and said. The secretary shook his head. I'm sorry, Chairman. We can't find out. With Panasonic's ability, they can't find the major shareholder behind them, so they must be more powerful than Panasonic Group. Matsushita Arita only felt black in front of his eyes, his head was splitting, and then he felt dizzy and fainted on the ground. Chairman, Chairman. Matsushita Arita was rushed to the hospital, and at the same time, Anbei Sakurako received the news and rushed to the hospital as soon as possible. Anbei Sakurako looked at her father, who was in a coma, and tears fell. What's going on? Why did it suddenly happen like this? The secretary quickly told Anbei Sakurako what happened. You mean, all this was caused by the mysterious major shareholder who suddenly appeared? Anbei Sakurako asked in surprise. The secretary nodded. How could this be? Buzz. The mobile phone in the bag vibrated, and Anbei Sakurako took it out and looked at it. It was an unfamiliar number. Hello, who are you? Aren't you looking for me? I'm the major shareholder, a slightly magnetic male voice came from the phone. Anbei Yingzi pursed her lips. What do you want to do? Madam, you don't want your father to go bankrupt, do you? Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Banwan Qingbu Letin Liang. Chapter 557. Anbei Yingzi was in tears, looking at her father lying on the bed with white hair on his temples, and slowly walked to the bathroom in the ward. Tell me, what do you want to do? Anbei Yingzi asked again. She was ready to dig out this person in her heart. No matter what he wanted to do, he would be punished. With her husband's current ability, it is not difficult to find this mysterious major shareholder. What? You will know, wait at home tonight. I warn you not to let your husband know about this, otherwise I can't guarantee that Panasonic Group will still exist, the male voice on the other side said mysteriously. Anbei Yingzi's heart skipped a beat. She knew that Panasonic Group was everything to her father. If it really went bankrupt, it would be a huge blow to her father. No wait, at home, Anbei Yingzi was a little confused. Why did this man dare to go to her home to see her? Wasn't he afraid of seeing her husband? Okay, ma'am. You will know. Then there was a busy tone on the phone. Anbei Yingzi put down the phone suspiciously and walked out of the bathroom. Just at this moment, the door of the ward opened, and Kenichi Anbei rushed in. Sakurako, what's wrong? I just called you and the line was busy. Father-in-law, how is he? A trace of panic flashed in Anbei Sakurako's eyes, and she immediately combed her hair to cover it up. Kenichi, Dad was just angry about something in the company. Now the doctor gave him a sedative and he fell asleep. Kenichi Anbei glanced at Matsushita Arita on the bed and waved to the secretary outside the door. The secretary nodded and walked in with some reporters. We will film Mr. Anbei's anxious expression later, do you know, the secretary said loudly. The reporters responded one after another, and the cameras focused on Kenichi Anbei's face. When Anbei Sakurako saw this scene, she showed a painful expression on her face. This kind of thing has become the norm. Even visiting the sick father-in-law has become a stage for Kenichi Anbei to show off. Sakurako, come quickly, Kenichi Anbei, who was already standing in front of the bed, shouted to Anbei Sakurako unhappily. Anbei Yingzi put away the expression on her face and silently stepped forward to accompany him in the show. It took a while for the reporters to finish filming. When the reporters walked out of the ward, Anbei Kenichi's face turned cold. Yingzi, I have an appointment tonight, so I won't go home for dinner. If it's too late, I won't go home. Anbei Yingzi's pupils shrank slightly when she heard this, and she instantly remembered what the mysterious man said. How could he know that her husband would not be at home for dinner tonight? After saying that, she looked at Matsushita Arita on the bed. When your father wakes up, tell me. I will come to visit him again. Anbei Kenichi glanced at Anbei Yingzi, turned his head and walked out of the ward. Anbei Yingzi looked at Anbei Kenichi, who walked out of the door with a wooden face. This is why she didn't tell her husband about the matter. Her husband would use all resources to get promoted. If he knew about the situation of the Matsushita Group, his father's foundation would be swallowed up by him. At around 7 in the evening, the night slowly fell, and a luxurious Rolls-Royce stopped at the door of a luxurious villa in Cheongdam-dong. Li Qing, wearing a black slim suit, got out of the car and looked up at the villa. Brother, do you really not need us to accompany you in? Crow whispered beside Li Qing. You humming idiot, get in the car quickly, Zhang Dongzia glared at Crow, who was not sensible at all. Brother, are you talking about business? It's obvious that you are going to have a heart-to-heart talk. Get out, Li Qing glared at Crow. Crow opened the door and got in the car quickly, and walked away. Walking to the front door made of mahogany, Li Qing knocked with the copper pull ring, dong dong dong. After more than 10 seconds, the door slowly opened. Seeing Anbei Yingzi, Li Qing's eyes lit up. Anbei Yingzi is younger than expected, with a delicate face. She wears a black woolen short-sleeved top and a white slit-hip skirt, which directly highlights the beautiful curves of her chest and hips. She wears a pair of pink high heels on her feet. She is about 1.65 meters tall. She looks just at the same height as Li Qing's shoulders, and the whole person looks elegant and sexy. Even Li Qing, who is well informed, admires her temperament. Seeing this young woman, Li Amon's spring heart began to throb again. What? You don't want to invite me in? Li Qing curled up the corners of his mouth and showed a bright smile. Even Anbei Yingzi was dazzled by this smile and subconsciously made way. Li Qing passed by Anbei Yingzi and his arm accidentally rubbed Anbei Yingzi's huge breasts. Just that moment, Anbei Yingzi was shocked and her face was covered with red clouds. She didn't know if this person did it on purpose. Li Qing walked into the villa slowly and looked around at the furnishings in the villa. The whole villa is in a European style with a cool tone, and there are several valuable oil paintings hanging on the walls. Li Qing stopped in front of the photo of Anbei's family. It seemed that it was when Anbei Kenichi just got married. The Anbei family members in the photo were all smiling brightly. Anbei Yingzi followed silently behind, but her eyes were fixed on Li Qing's broad back. Then Li Qing smiled, turned around and sat on the sofa in the living room. Looking at Anbei Yingzi, who was a little embarrassed, he pointed to the sofa opposite and said, "Sit." Anbei Yingzi breathed a sigh of relief. She was really afraid that Li Qing would let her sit next to him and do something wrong. At this time, Li Qing had completely taken the initiative in the conversation. "Madam, do you know why I want to see you?" Anbei Yingzi grabbed the hem of her skirt nervously and shook her head. "You are so beautiful." Anbei Yingzi trembled when she heard the words. No one had said such mushy words to her for many years. Her husband has always been obsessed with politics and has become less and less interested in her. Sometimes the two of them don't say 2 words a day. But Anbei Yingzi immediately realized the hidden meaning in Li Qing's words and shrank back in dismay. Li Qing understood Anbei Yingzi's reaction and just smiled. "Don't worry, Miss Matsushita, it's just a joke." "Miss Matsushita," Anbei Yingzi raised her head and looked at Li Qing in surprise. Since she married into the Abe family, no one called her Miss Matsushita, and everyone called her Mrs. Anbei. In fact, she still wanted to go back to a few years ago and become Miss Matsushita again. How can you let go of the Matsushita group?" Anbei Yingzi asked cautiously. "That depends on your performance." Li Qing smiled with a different meaning. Anbei Yingzi bit her lower lip, thinking of the manliness and soul contact that had just passed by Li Qing. She also thought of her husband, who was cold to her. "Kenichi, seems to have not touched me for half a year. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all." Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 558. Forget it, I won't tease you anymore. I want you to pay attention to every move your husband Kenichi Anbei makes. I also want to get the key to his safe. This is plasticine and you just need to print the key on it. Li Qing looked at the somewhat emotional Anbei Yingzi and said. In fact, his real purpose is not to get the key to Kenichi Anbei's safe. What he wants can't be told to Sakurako Anbei yet. He hasn't completed the strategy yet, at least, it's not the time yet. Ah, Anbei Yingzi suddenly raised her head and looked at Li Qing in surprise. While she was relieved, she still felt a sense of loss for some reason. No. No. I can't do anything to harm my husband. Anbei Yingzi waved her hands in a hurry. Li Qing smiled without saying anything, took out an envelope from his pocket and placed it on the table. Ms. Matsushita, let's take a look. Anbei Yingzi glanced at Li Qing and picked up the envelope on the table with a troubled expression. The envelope was thick and unsealed, and the photos inside accidentally fell out. Anbei Yingzi looked at the scattered photos and covered her mouth in disbelief. The photos were all of her husband Kenichi Anbei in a nightclub. Under the dim light, Kenichi Anbei hugged a scantily clad beauty and kept stroking her arms with one hand. Anbei Yingzi immediately picked up the photo and looked at it a few more times. Holding back the grief in his heart, he showed an ugly smile and explained to Anbei Kenichi, this is all just a joke. Li Qing smiled teasingly, Miss Matsushita, don't deceive yourself. Let me introduce to you that the first photo is the wife of Anbei Kenichi's subordinate, the second photo is the female star he kept, and the third photo is, you should know. Anbei Yingzi looked at the third photo. Of course she knew the woman in the photo. This woman was the second married wife of the Minister of Fisheries who lived next door to her. Only then did she realize that her husband was not obsessed with politics, but just lost interest in her. Tisk tisk, with such a beautiful wife still eating outside, what do you think he's after? Li Qing took the opportunity to sit next to Anbei Yingzi and caressed her little hand. Ah, the frivolous movement startled Anbei Yingzi, who was immersed in grief. Anbei Yingzi quickly stood up and moved away from Li Qing. Li Qing didn't care and stood up directly, is Anbei Kenichi worth it? Don't forget that he is your father who has always loved and cared for you. As long as this thing is done, the chairman will still belong to your father, and we will not participate in the management. Li Qing approached Anbei Yingzi again, frightening her to take a few steps back like a little rabbit, but there was already a wall behind her. Li Qing bent down and whispered in Anbei Yingzi's ear, I'm leaving, Miss Panasonic, please think about it carefully. Anbei Yingzi only felt Li Qing's hot breath on her neck, making her heart beat like a deer. This is my number. If you have any news, call me. After saying that, he put the business card into Anbei Yingzi's hand and touched her smooth little hands. Anbei Yingzi quickly pulled her hand away, only to feel that her face was frighteningly hot. When he came to his senses, Li Qing had already opened the door and walked out. Then she clutched the business card and sat weakly on the ground, feeling only a gurgling stream secretly flowing out. The expression on her face was extremely complicated, and an indescribable feeling brewed in her heart. She was already looking forward to the next meeting with Li Qing. Li Qing walked out of the villa and waved to the Rolls-Royce not far away. The car drove over slowly, and Li Qing got in the car. Brother, why is it so fast this time? Crow asked curiously, chewing a burger in his mouth. Li Qing glanced at him, do you think that just like you can get married just by paying money? This kind of woman needs to be conquered. It's exciting to think about being the Prime Minister's wife in the future. Let's go, Dongziu. Let's go eat hot pot. We haven't eaten in a long time. Brother, don't do it. I've already eaten 3 burgers. The crow cried out miserably. He thought he would have to wait until midnight this time, so he bought a few hamburgers just now. No wonder he gave them to Dongziu, but Dongziu didn't eat them. In the middle of the night, Kenichi Anbei came home drunk, smelling of alcohol. Anbei Yingzi, who had been tossing and turning and still not asleep, went downstairs to check. Although she felt alienated from Kenichi Anbei in her heart, she still fulfilled her duties as a wife. Kenichi, Kenichi. Go to sleep in the house. Be careful of catching a cold. Anbei Sakurako kept shaking the confused Anbei Kenichi. Water, go get me some water, Anbei Kenichi shouted in a commanding tone. Anbei Yingzi shook her head helplessly and put a glass of warm water to Anbei Kenichi's mouth. Anbei Kenichi probably drank too much and felt like retching, so the whole glass of water was spilled directly on him. Ah! and Beijian suddenly woke up. What are you doing? You can't even do such a small thing. Then he glared at Anbei Yingzi with disgust. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. After saying that, he staggered up the stairs. Anbei Yingzi had tears in her eyes, and a sense of grievance welled up in her heart. Then he looked at the suit that Kenichi Anbei had left on the sofa. The bright red lip print on the collar of the suit was extremely dazzling. Alas! Anbei Yingzi picked up the suit and planned to throw it into the washing machine. Crash! A bunch of keys fell to the ground. Anbei Yingzi saw the key and remembered Li Qing's instructions. She gritted her teeth and directly picked up the key to the safe and printed it on the plasticine. After doing all this, she breathed a sigh of relief and finally took the first step to betray her husband. Back in the bedroom, Anbei Yingzi put the things in her bag, but she still couldn't fall asleep for a long time. Li Qing's hard arms and hot hormones kept flashing in her mind. Somehow, her legs began to clamp together, and finally she fell asleep in a daze. In the morning, Li Qing ran in the park of King Mufang as usual, followed by Zhang Dongzhou and the resentful Crow. Yesterday, when eating hot pot, Crow watched from beginning to end. He really couldn't eat. Although he tried his best to secrete saliva, his stomach couldn't put anything in. Brother, everything else is almost ready. It's just the innermost line of defense of the Bank of Japan. There is really no way to open the door of the vault. Zhang Dongzhou reported to Li Qing while running. It is too difficult to blow up the vault. The Bank of Japan is too close to the police station. If there is any movement, the other side will react immediately. Well, wait a little longer. Is there any other news? Li Qing wiped the sweat off his face with a towel. Well, there's a little thing in Australia. Our casino has some friction with the local gangs. Zhang Dongzhou thought for a while and said. Well? Ask what happened. The other party didn't give face, and directly transferred people to level him, Li Qing said in a deep voice. You have to give face to the local snake, but if you don't keep the face, the snake head will cut you off as a drink. Brother, phone. Li Qing took the phone, and the screen showed an unfamiliar number. Li Qing clicked it casually. Hello? I got the key mold. Anbei Yingzi's soft voice came from the phone. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 559. Li Qing raised his eyebrows. Time went faster than expected. How can I leave it to you? Anbei Yingzi's pleasant voice came from the phone again. Li Qing teased, why, do you want to meet me so much? The ambiguous words made Anbei Yingzi's heart tremble, and she felt as if she had been seen through by this man. But he still suppressed the throbbing in his heart and hurriedly explained, I just want to complete our transaction as soon as possible. After all, my father is still in the hospital. Li Qing smiled and said, okay, you go to China Street, my people are waiting there. After saying that, he hung up the phone without hesitation. On the other side, Anbei Yingzi heard the busy signal on the phone and couldn't put down the phone for a long time. An incomparable sense of loss welled up in her heart. Alas! Anbei Yingzi let out a long sigh, with a tangled expression on her face. She didn't know why, but she was looking forward to meeting Li Qing again. After hanging up the phone, Li Qing continued running with a smile on his face, but his mood was obviously better. It's not time to capture Anbei Yingzi yet. Li Qing is very familiar with the play hard to get trick. Women are like this sometimes, and force is not enough. As long as you grasp a woman's mind, singles can be single, but this depends on personal understanding and cannot be taught. Single book lovers can't learn this. President, This is the latest financial statement. Secretary Oda respectfully placed the report on Kenichi Anbei's desk. Yes, Anbeijian raised his head, took the report on the table and read it carefully. How much expenditure did Iryehui spend this month? Anbei Kenichi looked at the expenditure on the report and asked with a frown. As one of the heirs of Yatagarasu Daewoo, his ability to become the president of the Bank of Japan at a young age is inseparable from his identity. Yatagarasu has a close relationship with the entire Xiali government. In order to balance the forces of all parties in Xiali, the Prime Minister also takes turns. Senior officials have made it clear that the next Prime Minister will be Yatagarasu. There is not only one Daewoo in Yatagarasu, but other Daewoo's successors are also eyeing the throne of Prime Minister. Lao Anbei put him in this position to improve his status in Yatagarasu. Now it seems to be working well, and the other two heirs are not as prestigious as him. President, it should be because the Iryehui suffered a major blow in the last period. These are the settlement allowance. Oda is nominally Yasuo Kenichi's secretary, but in fact, his true identity is Yasuo Kenichi's nihility monk, so he is relatively clear about the internal affairs of the organization. Upon hearing his explanation, Ken Anbei rubbed his tingling temples. He drank too much wine last night. Well, pay in full and don't default on it, Anbei Kenichi instructed. To leave society is a subordinate organization of Yatagarasu, and he still has to take care of it. After all, prestige is accumulated little by little. By the way, how about asking you to investigate the Panasonic Group? Kenichi Anbei looked at his secretary Oda and asked. Ken Anbei felt that the Panasonic Group's affairs were unusual from the very beginning. His father-in-law had always been in good health, so how could he be hospitalized for cerebral infarction for no reason? There must be something fishy here. President, a good friend of mine is in the Panasonic Group. He said it seems to be an equity issue, Oda reported. Equity, and Beijian raised his eyebrows. When his father found this marriage for him, his purpose was to take down the Panasonic Group when there was an opportunity. For this reason, he broke up with his first love and married Matsushita Sakurako, whom he didn't like. But Matsushita Arita seems to know something, and has always been on guard against the Anbei family, not allowing himself to take advantage of it. If this time it is really because of the equity issue, maybe this is really an opportunity. Go home and ask Matsushita Sakurako at night. He had no choice but to sacrifice himself, even though he was tired of Matsushita Sakurako. Is there anything else? Kenichi Anbei looked at Oda and asked. Well, there is a company that wants to borrow money from you. After a busy day, Anbei Kenichi rarely declined the evening entertainment and went home on time. He opened the lock with his fingerprint and walked into the villa. As soon as she entered the villa, she saw Anbei Yingzi sitting on the sofa watching TV. If anyone looks carefully, they will find that Anbei Yingzi's eyes are not focused on the TV, but are in a state of unconsciousness, not knowing what she is thinking. Sakurako, I'm back, Anbei Kenichi gave a rare smile to Anbei Sakurako. Sakurako Anbei was also startled by Kenichi Anbei's kindness, but she immediately reacted and stood up quickly. Kenichi, you are back. After saying that, he stepped forward and helped Anbei Kenichi take off his coat. She was very happy that Anbei Kenichi did not go out to socialize today. What did you do for dinner at home tonight? Anbei Kenichi asked, pretending to be interested. Anbei Yingzi's face changed slightly. After delivering the things, she had been sitting on the sofa recalling Li Qing's face, but she didn't do anything. Ah, I'm sorry. I thought you didn't come back today and didn't do anything. What do you want to eat? I'll do it right away, Anbei Yingzi said hurriedly. Kenichi Anbei showed a hint of displeasure on his face, but he quickly covered it up. Haha, not busy, let's go out to eat later. Come and sit. We haven't chatted together for a long time, Kenichi Anbei said with a fake smile. Anbei Yingzi felt a little guilty when she saw her husband being so gentle. She was thinking about Li Qing just now, which was really inappropriate. Anbei Sakurako was full of joy and wanted to sit next to Anbei Kenichi. Kenichi Anbei's expression froze, and he subconsciously moved his butt to the side. Sakurako, are there any problems with the Panasonic group recently? Kenichi Anboku put a smile on his face again. When Anbei Yingzi heard this, her heart skipped a beat. She didn't know what Anbei Kenichi had heard. He quickly shook his head. No, maybe my father's illness caused some turmoil within the group. I believe my brother and the others will solve it. Yingzi, you are only half a son-in-law. If you have anything to do, don't hide it. As a son-in-law, I will definitely help. Although Anbei Kenichi was impatient, he still had a gentle smile on his face. Anbei Yingzi's heart kept falling. She now knew why Anbei Kenichi was so gentle to her when he came back. It turns out that his desire to covet his own group has not dissipated. There's nothing wrong with the Panasonic group. Anbei Yingzi's face turned cold. She had always paid for everything wrongly. When Ken Anbei saw Sakurako's expression, he stopped pretending, and the expression on his face became cold again. Okay, I remembered, there is an important banquet tonight. Anbei Jian left without looking back. As soon as Anbei Ken walked out of the door, Anbei Yingzi covered her mouth and cried loudly. From this moment on, she was completely disappointed with this person. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 560. After getting the key, Li Qing waited for a few more days. During these days, he had not contacted Anbei Yingzi. Li Qing did not take action until he felt that the time was almost right. At 8 o'clock in the evening in Tokyo, the sky had completely darkened. The same Rolls-Royce stopped in front of the luxurious villa, and Li Qing got out of the car. Come pick me up tomorrow. He had already done his research. Anbei Jianyi was still staying at his first love's house today, and he would definitely not come back at night. Knock, knock, knock. He knocked on the door gently. However, the waiting time this time was longer than the last time. It took about 2 minutes before Anbei Yingzi opened the door. The moment he saw Anbei Yingzi, the smile on Li Qing's face became even brighter. Anbei Yingzi had a ponytail, a white headband on her head, a tight sportswear on her upper body, gray yoga pants on her lower body, and white sneakers on her feet, showing her gourd-like figure to the fullest. Her head was sweaty, and it was obvious that she was running on a treadmill. Ah! Why is it you? Anbei Yingzi looked at Li Qing in surprise. Li Qing hadn't contacted her for the past few days, and she thought the matter was over. Looking at the surprised Abe Yingzi, Li Qing smiled, and he clearly heard the hidden joy in the woman's tone. Why can't it be me? I got the key, of course I have to see what's in the safe. Li Qing raised the key in his hand and showed a playful smile. Why? Don't you welcome me? When Anbei Yingzi was hesitating, Li Qing stared at her soft features, especially her red and slightly moist little mouth, and slowly approached. Anbei Yingzi was so scared that she jumped away like a little rabbit, and Li Qing entered the villa. Anbei Yingzi helplessly looked outside, and found that there was no one, so she quickly closed the door. It felt as exciting as having an affair. Li Qing walked into the villa, looked back at Anbei Yingzi's cautious look, curled the corners of his mouth and smiled. The shy look of a good young woman was the most flavorful. He knew that married young women like this were not like those little girls. It was enough for them to be better than their husbands. Especially for such resentful women who had conflicts with their husbands. Anbei Jianyi had always used cold violence against Anbei Yingzi, which was in sharp contrast to the handsome and domineering Li Qing. Being conquered by Li Qing was a natural thing. Anbei Yingzi was frightened by Li Qing's eyes and whispered shyly, "Come with me, the safe is upstairs." After that, she took the lead and walked up quickly, fearing that Li Qing would get too close to her. Li Qing smiled and followed. Judging from the feeling of this thing, the atmosphere was not yet there. The two entered Anbei Jianyi's study. Anbei Yingzi turned the oil painting on the wall, and an inner door opened, and inside was Anbei Jianyi's safe. Li Qing took the key and inserted it. Ms. Matsushita, you still need to enter the password. Anbei Yingzi walked forward and put her finger on the key, and looked at Li Qing again. Just as their eyes met, Anbei Yingzi felt numb all over her body, as if she had been electrocuted. Her fair face was stained with a hint of crimson, and her breathing became rapid. Ms. Matsushita, you are so beautiful. Li Qing smelled a fragrance. Anbei Yingzi had just finished exercising, and her body was also sweating, especially the yoga pants that highlighted her figure, which made her exude a young woman's charm. You, don't do this, I have a husband. Anbei Yingzi took a step back. Li Qing chuckled and went forward to hug her. He, I don't mind. Anbei Yingzi. After a long time, the messy study was scattered with pieces of yoga pants, and clothes were thrown everywhere. Anbei Yingzi fell into Li Qing's arms, her eyes blurred, her mind blank. I'm afraid that Anbei Kenichi's time in these years has not been this long. The worst thing is that this man is still a stick. Li Qing whispered in Anbei Yingzi's ear, Madam, I have a skill. Call me Yingzi, don't call me Madam. After a long time, the study finally quieted down. Yingzi, enter the password quickly. Li Qing patted Anbei Yingzi's roundness. Ah, stop it, Anbei Yingzi said hoarsely. She trembled and entered the password, then turned the key and the door of the safe opened. Come on, Yingzi, put on my clothes for me. Anbei Yingzi blushed as she dressed Li Qing. Especially when she saw the man's 8-pack abs, she couldn't help but put her feet together and rubbed her thighs. You can find it slowly by yourself. I'm going to take a shower. Anbei Yingzi picked up the broken cloth on the ground and ran out in a hurry. Li Qing smiled and shook his head, focusing on the safe. In fact, he didn't plan to find anything good here. His purpose was to capture Anbei Yingzi and let her investigate Anbei Kenichi. But since I'm here, I might as well do the whole show and take a look. The first floor is filled with gold bars, US dollars, jewelry, and other things without exception, which Li Qing has no interest in. The second floor, Li Qing flipped through, and all of them were notebooks written in Japanese, which Li Qing couldn't understand, so he had to wait for Anbei Yingzi to come and take a look. The third floor, Li Qing often saw, so he knew that these were some company property contracts and the like. Li Qing searched again, and there was actually a secret compartment between the second and third floors. Pulling out the secret compartment, a few thin sheets of paper appeared in front of Li Qing. Unfortunately, they were all in Japanese, so Li Qing simply took the things to find Anbei Yingzi. Anyway, it was a long night and there was plenty of time to translate. Anbei Yingzi was wandering in the bathtub, her hands unconsciously stirring the water, as if the joy just now had not dissipated. As the steam steamed, she felt her cheeks feel a little hot. She never thought it would take so long to do something like this. This was the first time in her life that she felt physically and mentally enjoying herself. She thought of Li Qing's skill again in her mind. Hey, what am I thinking about? Anbei Yingzi covered her hot face and shook her head. Yingzi? Yingzi, the bathroom door was suddenly pushed open, and Li Qing burst into the bathroom. Ah, Anbei Yingzi subconsciously crossed her arms in front of her chest and curled up her legs. Li Qing looked at the frightened Anbei Yingzi and rolled his eyes. What are you afraid of? I just saw everything all over you. That's not okay, we are not familiar yet. Anbei Yingzi also knew that the action was too extreme, but she still tried to explain. I'm more familiar with Zhao Zilong than I am on Changban Slope, but still not familiar with him. Li Qing smiled evilly. Anbei Yingzi opened her eyes wide. She had heard of Zhao Zilong, but she really didn't know this illusion. Okay, come and help me translate. What is this? Li Qing waved his hand and walked out of the bathroom. After a while, Anbei Yingzi came out wrapped in a bath towel. Li Qing, who was lying on the bed, saw that there was a vacuum inside her, but she was in the same time and there was no reaction. Anbei Yingzi sat by the bed, picked up the notebook Li Qing handed her, and looked at it curiously. After a long time, Anbei Yingzi said, "This is a record of some of Anbei Kenichi's power and money transactions, as well as some criminal evidence of officials. As for this one." She took the pieces of tissue paper she took out from the secret compartment and frowned. "It seems to be a plan for a secret project."